Hi, fellow guitar players. Today I'm going to share with you my favorite alternate tuning, and that is open C tuning. And if you followed my channel for a while, you probably know that for a long time I only used standard tuning, but I used a drop D capo a lot. Maybe a little bit over a year ago, I discovered the open C, well, I'd already known about, but I kind of rediscovered the open C tuning and really enjoyed it. So the tuning is real simple. It's just C, G, C, G, C. E is the highest string there. And so you get this open C chord. And so the way this works is so that you got the one chord is the C, and then you can actually just put a finger up here on the 5th fret on the top string, and you can play that. So that's your 4th chord in F in this case. And then if you put a finger on the 2nd fret of the 5th string, which is typically the A string, but that's like, so that's now an A minor chord. And then if you just move that finger down 1 fret, you have like a version of the G chord, which is the 5 chord here. So you see, you notice all those chords I was just playing with one finger, which is awesome because that leaves your other fingers to do other things. And it sounds pretty and exotic and stuff. But so I did a version of this, a version of Amazing Grace that I was really happy with, maybe a little over a year ago with this open C tuning. And one thing that's kind of neat is at the end, I played the melody like up the neck, and the kind of these lower chords, these lower strings just rang out, and it gave kind of like the bagpipe feel. The bagpipe has one chord that it plays, and then they play the melody over the top. So it's kind of like that kind of a thing. And this tuning really lends itself to that. But one problem I have with open C is that, and this is the problem I have with any time that you have like the same problem with open D. I'm sorry, with drop D tuning. Is that when you have the difference between the lowest string and the second lowest string there, when that's a 5th instead of a 4th, then typically in standard tuning you've got a 4th, but in this case it's a 5th. Then that means that when you go to your 4th chord, which in this case is a F, it's really hard to reach all the way back there to get those melody notes on the first couple of frets. And when you're playing a fingerstyle guitar arrangement, typically you're trying to make use of the open strings and the first couple of frets as much as you can to get your melody in. And so I didn't like that about the open C, but I came up with a solution that I'm happy with, and it's actually the same solution that I use a lot with even standard tunings. So I'm using my drop D capo, and you see that capo, if you can see there, it's got a notch cut out of it, and it leaves the top string open. So I just put that in the 2nd fret, and yeah, leaves the top string open, and then I tune that low string up to D. And so now I've got, it's the same thing as the open C tuning, except now it's up a step. So now it's like that's actually a D chord now instead of a C. But what this does is now the difference between the top 2 strings is actually a 4th instead of a 5th now, and that means that when I'm playing about this, it's so that's a D chord, and then it can play a G chord with a G in the bass. Instead of being here, it's back here again. And so I'm back to these one finger chords, but I don't have to reach like this. And so if I'm going to play a melody, I can. So I'm just kind of making that up as I go there. But it's really cool. You see it's easy to reach, and there's a lot you can do with it. And so you can just kind of mess around with it there. Another cool thing about this tuning is that you can just play your bass notes up the neck, And so, all those open strings are still, they still work for you. So, and you can also then do some things like this where you're going to be. it sounds real pretty, right? So, well, I just wanted to share that with you. Experiment with it and find the different scales and where the bass notes are and stuff. And it's really, I find, very inspiring. So I'm just going to leave that with you for now. Thanks so much, everybody. I hope you enjoy that. I'll see you in the next one. God bless.